Alright guys, welcome back to another episode of Everything Business. If it is your first time joining, thank you for tuning in. Right, please remember to like, subscribe and share. If you're a regular viewer, thank you for always coming back. Right, and you can just you can just share with your friends, and so that the thing can get larger and we can help more people, because the aim is to pass the exam this exam period. And so thank you for coming, thank you for viewing. Now, as was promised in part 1 of the control accounts video, I would be doing a past paper question. Now there are many past paper questions that I could have chosen from, but I chose a 2017 past paper question, and so today we're going to be looking at the 2017 past paper question. All right, so this is the question, right? It is a longer question, but I had to cut it down to fit here, right? And so it's talking about the Kaale Security and First Call Transport. So it says that Kaale Security Enterprise buys and sells security devices only on credit. During the month of May, some accounting information was produced as follows, right? And then they give us some list of transactions here, and these transactions are what we are going to be using to make up the various control accounts. All right, I want you to notice that the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 transactions would relate to the purchases or the creditors control account, and the remaining 4 transactions would relate to the sales ledger control account. All right, so let us get right into it. So we're going to look at the first 5 transactions as it relates to the purchases ledger or the creditors control. So the first thing you're going to start with your heading. Always remember to put in your heading. All right, so we have it: Kaale Security Enterprise Creditors Control or Purchases Ledger Control. You can just write any name you want in terms of creditors control or purchases ledger control. I write both names just to help you guys to understand the various names. Alright, so this is the control account. The control account rather. Alright, so it says the first transaction says amount owed to accounts payable on the 1st of May was 2,390. Alright, so this is the account, this is the opening balance. Alright, and we know that the creditors control account carries a credit balance, which means that the information is to be placed on the credit side. Or to increase the account, you would make a credit entry. So the opening balance would normally be on the credit side. So see, May 1, balance brought down 2,390. The second transaction says credit purchases for the month total 24,560. Right, this would increase your creditors, right? And so we will put it on the credit side. The next transaction says defective devices returned to sellers were valued at $230. Right, obviously this is purchases return, because you are now sending back some of the goods, the devices, to your suppliers because they were defective. So it would be decreasing the amount that you owe to your suppliers. So that would go on the debit side. And then the next transaction, which is in my opinion a tricky transaction, it says that a debt to a creditor of 8,770 was settled by check for 8,300. So this have 2 transactions in it, or 2 entries. Right, the first one is that yes, you are paying some money to your suppliers, which would reduce the amount of money that you owe, which is $8,300. So you would make a debit entry. But right, you were supposed to pay 8,770, but you pay 8,300. What does that mean? Yes, it means that you have received a discount. And if you remember, based on the format, discount received would be placed on the debit side in the purchases ledger control, because it reduces the amount that you owe to your suppliers or to your creditors, and so discount received is entered there for $470. Right, pay attention to these little transactions that CSEC will try to test you. All right, you have to think about it. All right, and then now the last transaction says amount owed to accounts payable on the 31st of May was 4,900. Now this would be your closing balance, and remember the tip that I gave you on when you're given a closing balance, you switch the sides. So we would put the closing balance on the debit side. All right, and by looking at this now, right, at our purchases ledger control account, we can add up the debit side. The debit side would add up to $9,000 and the credit side would now add up to $31,850. Alright, so if we are going to balance off this, it's obvious that the balance carried down would be on the debit side because the debit side has the least amount, and so we would subtract the 9,000, this 9,000 from the 31,850, and we would get 22,850 to be placed on the debit side of the creditors control account. And now the purchases ledger control account is balanced at 31,850. all right, and there you have it. The first part of the question is completed, right, and it wasn't anything difficult, right? You just have to focus, right? And I want to tell you how much marks this particular question it value. This particular question right here, right, this particular part, it values 7 marks. So this is 7 easy marks right off the bat by just doing the purchases ledger control. The sales ledger control is what we're going to be doing next, and it values 4 marks. All right, so then the last 4 transactions, as I said earlier, would provide information for the sales ledger or the debtors control. Again, you start with your heading, very important. All right, and so the first transaction says credit sales for the month, total the same month, total 55,460, right? And from the format from the previous video, you know that anything that increases your debtors, right, would be on the debit side of your sales ledger control. And so credit sales would increase your debtor, so we would make a debit entry of 55,460, right? The next transaction says discounts allowed, or discount allowed during a week-long sale was $250. So you get a discount, right? Sorry, you allowed a discount of $250. That is reducing the amount that your debtors owe to you. Therefore, you would make a credit entry in your purchase, in your sales ledger control, right? Just like that. All right, the next transaction says accounts receivable on the 31st of May was 6,170. That is actually the closing balance, so we're not going to use that one as yet. All right, so the next one says amount paid by accounts receivable totaled 53,140. So it means that your debtors are paying you money, right? Totaling 53,140. And if they are paying you money, it means that it is reducing the amount that they owe to you, right? So you would make a credit entry in the sales ledger control, just like that. All right. And so we go back to the transaction above, which says accounts receivable on the 31st of May was 6,170. As I said, that is the closing balance, and since this is the closing balance, we're going to now switch the side, right, and put it on the debit side. All right, so it May 31 balance CD 6,170. All right, so when I add up we are now going to balance off the sales ledger control. When I add up my debit side, it comes to 61,630, and my credit side would come to 53,390. Alright, so I would now subtract the 53,390 from the 61,630, and I would get 8,240, which is to be inserted on the side that has the smallest amount, which is the credit side, just like that. And so the sales ledger control is balanced off at 61,630. That is the total on the account, and that is easy, 4 marks. All right, so there's nothing really hard about control accounts. The questions can be longer, right, or they can appear to be longer. They can give you a lot more information where you have to put in information. You know that the sales ledger control from my last video, part 1, can have many more items in it, like discounts, dishonored check, refund, right, interest can also be there too, right? And so different questions can test you differently, but they will always give you the information that you need, and you just put in the information. There's not a lot of calculation that has to be done or calculating. You just have to know where to put the information, and that is basically the control accounts for you. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share. Hit that notification bell so that you never miss a tutorial, right? If you need additional past paper questions, you can hit me up at everythingbusiness876@gmail.com, and I can forward additional past paper questions on control accounts for you. Alright, so thank you for viewing. See you in my next accounting video where I'll be doing bank reconciliation statement. You don't want to miss that. Alright, so see you. Wow, good.